The Zethurian planet glimmered in the soft light of a nearby star. Towering trees with silver leaves swayed gently in the warm breeze, and rivers sparkled like liquid crystal as they wound through emerald valleys. Birds with wings like ribbons of light danced above, calling to each other in patterns of color and sound. Life on this world was abundant, peaceful, and delicate. For centuries, the Zethurians had lived quietly among their ecosystems. They had learned the ways of the planet, understanding the subtle balance between predator and prey, river and forest, sky and soil. Their cities blended seamlessly with nature, structures grew organically, like living organisms, and energy came from the sun and wind. Technology was advanced, yes, but it was used to nurture, not to dominate. High above the planet in the orbital observatories, the Zethurians noticed something unusual. A small fleet was moving through the stars, approaching their system. At first, it was just a dot on their scanners, nothing threatening, but as it grew larger, a chill ran through the Zethurian council. "Humans," one of the elders whispered. "I have heard of them before. They survive places no other life can. They adapt, they endure. We must be cautious." The Zethurians had stories of humans, tales passed across the galaxy through traders, explorers, and old star maps. Humans were known as a death-defying species, capable of walking on volcanic fields, surviving freezing voids, and thriving in toxic atmospheres. Unlike most civilizations, humans did not rely solely on technology. They used their minds, their intuition, and their bodies to survive. The council convened in the largest crystalline hall, their forms gliding silently through the air. Each member's shape was fluid, almost liquid, reflecting the colors of the room around them. "They will come here," another elder said. "We must warn them to stay away. We cannot risk our world being disturbed." The Zethurians decided to send a silent warning across the galaxy. Using pulses of energy encoded with meaning, they broadcast a message of peace, pleading for humans not to land. They described the beauty of the world, the fragility of its ecosystems, and the need to preserve its balance. They hoped that humans, known for their curiosity, might respect the warning. Meanwhile, the human fleet drew closer. It was not large, but it was efficient, well-organized, and very human. The ships were built for exploration and observation, equipped with tools to study new worlds. Humans were careful, but they were also deeply curious, eager to understand life beyond their own planet. Captain Alara watched the Zethurian system grow on her screen. The planet below shimmered with green and silver like a jewel floating in the void. "Look at that," she said softly. "It's beautiful, almost alive." Her crew nodded, equally captivated. Sensors showed rich forests, rivers teeming with life, and skies alive with flying creatures. Yet there was something else, something subtle. The readings hinted at intelligence, but unlike humans. The technology they detected was advanced but harmonious, not aggressive. "Captain," said her science officer, "we're picking up signals. They're strange. Not languages we've encountered, but they feel like warnings." Alara leaned closer. She could sense the caution behind the signals. "Maybe they don't want us here." Her first officer frowned. "Or maybe they want to see if we will come anyway." Far above, the Zethurians watched the approaching humans with mixed feelings. They admired humans' courage but feared their presence. Their prayers whispered across the universe, asking for the humans to turn away. "Let them not disturb our world," they hoped. "Let them pass us by." But the universe has its own plans. A shadow moved at the edge of the Zethurian system, far beyond human detection. Massive, slow, and terrifying, the Deathworlders approached. They were unlike anything humans or Zethurians had ever seen. Covered in thick, resilient shells and moving with deliberate purpose, they thrived in worlds of extreme heat, cold, and radiation. Wherever the Deathworlders went, nature bent to their will. Forests could be flattened, rivers redirected, and storms stirred, not by violence but by their very presence. The Zithurians had long feared them, and now the creatures were heading straight for their home. Back on the planet, the humans began their descent. Ships glided through the atmosphere, engines humming softly. They landed in a clearing surrounded by towering trees. Crew members stepped out, taking cautious steps onto the soft ground. The first human to touch the soil marveled at its richness. Plants brushed against their hands, and insects with translucent wings circled curiously. They moved with respect, careful not to disturb anything unnecessarily. Humans were explorers, not conquerors. Zithurians observed silently, shifting between trees and rocks, invisible yet present. They were nervous. Every move humans made was careful, measured, and intelligent, but unpredictable. Humans did not fear danger in the way other species did. They adapted. They survived. Captain Alara and her team studied the world, taking samples and recording observations. They marveled at the floating flora, the glowing insects and creatures that communicated through color. Their scientists speculated about the planet's energy networks, the interconnections between species, and the intelligence woven into the ecosystem itself. But then the first signs of the Deathworlders appeared. A distant forest trembled as enormous shapes moved through it. Trees bent unnaturally, not from wind but from the presence of something immense. Birds scattered in brilliant flashes of light. The humans noticed immediately. "Captain, something's coming," the science officer said. "It's massive." The Zithurians panicked. They had never faced a threat like this, not even in their most ancient records. They shifted forms rapidly, communicating in a language of emotion and color, warning each other of the danger. Yet the humans did not retreat. They observed carefully, trying to understand the creature's behavior. They noticed patterns in movement, responses to temperature, light, and sound. Humans began to hypothesize quietly that perhaps the Deathworlders could be guided rather than fought. The Zithurians watched in disbelief. No species had ever endured the Deathworlders' proximity without fleeing or dying. Humans walked closer to the edge of the forest, calm and confident. They were not reckless. They were calculating, learning, and preparing. The sky began to darken as the Deathworlders drew nearer. Their immense shapes moved slowly but with unstoppable determination. A low vibration hummed through the ground. Trees swayed unnaturally. Birds scattered. The Zithurians trembled at the sight, and yet humans stood firm. They examined the environment, noted the creatures' reactions, and began planning. They spoke quietly among themselves, sharing ideas, hypotheses, and observations. "Perhaps," Captain Alara whispered, "we don't need to fight them. Maybe we can work with them or around them." The Zithurians gasped. They had never considered that humans could see a solution in the face of apparent doom. Their species had always relied on avoidance, subtlety, and harmony, but humans approached problems differently. Humans faced danger head-on with intelligence, curiosity, and courage. And so the stage was set. Humans had arrived, the Zithurians hoped they would leave, but the Deathworlders were unstoppable and the planet's balance teetered on the edge. One species had come to explore. One species had come to pray that others stay away. And one species would unknowingly test the limits of both. The first part of the story ends with a moment of tension. Humans on the ground, observing the strange world and the approaching Deathworlders, while the Zithurians wonder silently if they have just invited the saviors of their world or its destruction. The humans moved cautiously through the forest, marveling at every detail of the Zithurian world. Plants shimmered in colors they had never seen, floating gently above the ground as if the air itself held them up. Strange animals with translucent skin darted through the undergrowth, leaving trails of glowing dust in their wake. Every step revealed new wonders. Captain Alara led her team to a clearing near a crystal blue river. The water rippled in strange patterns, reflecting light in dancing prisms. Her scientists knelt to study it, noting its unusual composition. Tiny creatures swam just beneath the surface, each connected to one another in a network of glowing strands. "This ecosystem is unlike anything we've encountered," her science officer said, eyes wide. "It's intelligent in a way we can barely describe." Alara nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. Humanity had explored hundreds of worlds, but this was different. The Zithurians had nurtured this place for millennia. Their technology was seamless with nature, invisible yet powerful. As the humans continued their survey, a tremor ran through the ground. Birds scattered, their wings glowing as they fled. The forest whispered and swayed, and the humans realized the tremor was not natural. It was something enormous moving through the trees. "They're here," one of the scientists whispered. "The Deathworlders." From the shadows, shapes emerged. Massive hulking forms, each covered in thick armor-like shells that glinted faintly in the sun. They moved slowly but with purpose. Their legs, long and jointed, crushed plants beneath them without a thought. Every step seemed to bend the earth itself. The humans stopped. They did not panic. Instead, they observed. Humans had always survived in harsh conditions, adapting in ways no other species could. They studied the Deathworlders carefully, noting the creatures' reactions to light, sound, and temperature. Captain Alara raised her hand. "Keep calm, don't make sudden moves. Watch how they react." The Zithurians, invisible among the trees, trembled at the sight. For centuries, their technology and wisdom had kept the Deathworlders away. Now, for the first time, they saw humans approach the situation not with fear, but with curiosity and careful calculation. Alara gestured to her team. "We need to learn their patterns. If we understand them, maybe we can guide them instead of fighting them." Her words stunned the Zithurians. No species had ever approached the Deathworlders this way. Typically, intelligent beings fled or built weapons. Humans did neither. They adapted. They observed. They prepared to act in harmony with the world. The humans split into small teams, each taking a different area to monitor. Sensors recorded the Deathworlders' movements, while drones floated above, projecting soft lights and sounds to test their responses. The creatures reacted predictably to some stimuli and ignored others. Slowly, the humans began to understand their behavior. "They're not mindless," one scientist said. "They respond to environmental cues, heat, vibration, light, even the way plants sway. They're alive in a very different way than we are." Alara nodded. "Good. That means we have a chance." Meanwhile, the Deathworlders continued their march through the forest. Trees bent before them, rivers rippled unnaturally, and the air vibrated with their slow, deliberate movement. Despite their size and power, they did not attack. They were not hunters. They were survivors, moving as the planet itself dictated. The humans realized this. If they could work with the Deathworlders' instincts rather than against them, they could protect the Zithurian world. Over the next few hours, the humans tested various methods. They used holographic projections of plants to draw the Deathworlders away from sensitive areas. They played low-frequency vibrations that mimicked the natural rhythm of the forest. They experimented with light patterns, noticing that the creatures moved toward brighter areas and avoided shadows. The Zithurians watched in awe. Humans were not using violence. They were using intelligence, patience, and empathy. Every human action considered the Deathworlders' nature, the ecosystem, and the balance of the planet. One moment stood out. A massive Deathworlder approached a fragile grove where glowing plants, essential to the planet's energy network, stood. The humans moved quickly but calmly. Using a combination of light signals and subtle vibrations, they guided the creature along a path that preserved the grove. The Zithurians could hardly believe their eyes. They can survive near these creatures and still protect the planet," one whispered. "Yes," another replied. "Humans are different. They do not dominate. They adapt." As the day progressed, the humans continued their work, gently steering the Deathworlders away from settlements and critical ecosystems. They learned more about the creatures, senses, and instincts with each passing hour. Every observation, every adjustment brought them closer to harmony. By evening, the humans had created a temporary, safe zone for the Zithurian forests. The Deathworlders moved steadily through the planet, but their path now avoided critical areas. The humans had achieved something no other species had managed: coexistence with the Deathworlders. The Zithurians emerged from their hiding, approaching the humans with caution. Their forms shimmered in the fading light, expressing gratitude, curiosity, and disbelief all at once. "You have done what we could not," one elder said. "You have faced the Deathworlders, and yet the world remains intact." Alara smiled. "We did not fight. We learned. We adapted. That is what humans do. We survive, yes, but we also respect life. We can endure and we can protect." The Zithurians were silent for a long moment. They had expected humans to be dangerous intruders, but instead they were protectors. A species capable of surviving the deadliest conditions, yet gentle enough to preserve life. Night fell over the planet, and the forest glowed softly under the light of bioluminescent plants. The Deathworlders settled into the valleys and forests, moving slowly, their massive forms casting long shadows. Humans and Zithurians observed, side by side, watching the balance of life continue. Even from orbit, human ships transmitted data back to their home system. The team knew that this planet held lessons for all of humanity, lessons about adaptability, courage, and the importance of understanding life in all its forms. And yet, a new challenge loomed. The Deathworlders were unpredictable. Their instincts were strong, their size immense, and the planet vast. One wrong move could lead to disaster. But for the first time, the Zithurians felt hope. Humans had arrived, and perhaps, for the first time in their history, their world had a chance to survive even the deadliest threat. Captain Alara looked out over the forest from a hilltop. The trees shimmered in moonlight, rivers sparkled like silver, and massive Deathworlders moved gently through the valleys. Humans had survived dangerous worlds before, but this one was different. This one tested more than physical strength. It tested patience, intelligence, and empathy. "We'll find a way," she said quietly. "We always do." The Zithurians whispered among themselves, their forms flickering in shades of green and blue. They had prayed for humans to stay away. They had feared their arrival, and yet now they felt something new: admiration, respect, hope. The first part of coexistence had succeeded, but the planet was still wild, the Deathworlders still powerful, and humans had only begun to understand what it meant to survive here. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and new tests of courage. But for now, the humans had earned the trust of the Zithurians and had taken the first steps toward protecting a world that no other species could have managed. The forest settled into quiet, alive with unseen life, as the humans planned their next move. They had arrived to explore, but they were already changing the fate of an entire world. The Zithurian forests had calmed, but the humans knew this was only the beginning. The Deathworlders moved steadily across the planet, massive and relentless, guided by instincts that no ordinary species could fully understand. Captain Alara studied them from a hilltop, binoculars in hand. Their sheer size and resilience were awe-inspiring, yet humans had learned something crucial: brute force was useless here. Intelligence, patience, and empathy were the keys to survival. "We need to think differently," Alara said to her team. "We can't stop them by force. We can only guide them and work with the planet itself." Her team spread out, analyzing the terrain, studying the creatures' patterns, and noting how they responded to environmental changes. They discovered that the Deathworlders were highly sensitive to natural signals: light intensity, vibrations through the ground, even the subtle flow of water in rivers. This was the humans' advantage. "We can use the planet against their instincts," her science officer suggested. "Not to harm them, but to direct them away from critical areas." Ilara nodded. Exactly. Let's start small. We need to experiment carefully and observe the effects. The first trial took place near a dense grove where glowing Zithurian plants produced energy essential for the ecosystem. A massive Deathworlder approached, its heavy legs shaking the ground with every step. Humans positioned small devices along the path. They emitted soft light patterns and gentle vibrations, carefully calculated to attract the creature's attention. At first, nothing happened. The Deathworlder paused, swaying slightly, then changed direction. Slowly, it veered away from the grove. The humans exhaled, careful not to show excitement. It was a small victory, but an important one. The strategy worked. Over the next several hours, humans refined their methods. They combined light, sound, and subtle environmental cues. They placed holographic projections of glowing plants to lure the Deathworlders to safer paths. They used vibrations in the soil to guide them around fragile ecosystems. With each step, they learned more about the creature's instincts and how to manipulate them without causing harm. The Zithurians observed, astonished. Never had a species approached the Deathworlders in this way. Other civilizations had tried weapons, barriers, and traps and failed. Humans used none of those. They relied on observation, adaptation, and understanding. One Zithurian elder spoke quietly to a companion, emotion flickering through their form in waves of green and gold. They are remarkable. They survive where others perish. They do not destroy, yet they influence the world around them with precision. I do not understand fully, but I respect them deeply. The human strategy became bolder. They began guiding entire groups of Deathworlders along predetermined routes. Using carefully calculated light signals, vibrations, and even controlled forest fires in uninhabited areas, they influenced the creatures' behavior without harming them. Each human team communicated constantly, adjusting tactics based on real-time observations. For the first time, the Zithurians realized something extraordinary. Humans were not just surviving, they were thriving in this environment in ways no other species could. They endured dangerous terrain, toxic gases, sudden storms, and massive, unpredictable creatures. Yet they remained calm, clever, and empathetic. Captain Alara climbed to the top of a rocky outcrop to observe the valley below. Dozens of Deathworlders moved slowly along the routes the humans had designed. Forests remained intact, rivers flowed unblocked, and delicate ecosystems were unharmed. "This is working," she said, almost to herself. "We're not controlling them, we're guiding them." Her team had become experts at reading the Deathworlders' subtle cues. They noticed that the creatures responded not just to artificial signals but to natural stimuli as well. Flowing water, shifting sunlight, and even the motion of swaying plants influenced their paths. Humans adapted to these rules, using them to create safe corridors through the most dangerous areas. But the planet was not without surprises. One day, a massive storm swept across a wide valley where several Deathworlders were moving. Trees bent and snapped, lightning flashed, and rivers swelled. The humans faced a dilemma. The storm threatened both the creatures and the ecosystem. Alara's first thought was to retreat, but then she remembered the humans' greatest strength, ingenuity under pressure. "We can guide them," she said firmly. "We just need to use the storm itself." Using portable devices and drones, the humans amplified the storm's natural signals, lightning, wind, and rainfall, to influence the Deathworlders' instincts. The creatures responded, moving away from the most dangerous areas, following patterns dictated by the humans' interventions. Within hours, the storm passed, and the Deathworlders were safe. The forest survived almost unscathed. The Zithurians watched silently, their minds awash with wonder. "They have turned the storm itself into a tool," one elder said. "No species could do that except humans." As the days passed, the human strategy evolved into a full-scale guidance system. They divided the planet into zones, predicting the Deathworlders' paths and adjusting environmental cues accordingly. Holographic plants, gentle vibrations, light projections, and even controlled movements of Zethurian fauna were all used in combination. The Deathworlders moved steadily along safe routes, avoiding cities, sacred groves, and fragile ecosystems. The humans had turned what seemed like an unstoppable threat into a manageable presence. One evening, after a long day of observing and guiding the creatures, Alara sat on a hilltop with a Zethurian elder beside her. The sky glowed with the soft light of multiple moons, and the valley below shimmered as the Deathworlders moved through their new paths. "You humans, you are extraordinary," the elder said. "You do not fight, you do not destroy, yet you survive, adapt, and protect. I do not understand fully, but I know this. You are unlike any species I have seen." Alara smiled. "We don't try to dominate. We observe, learn, and adapt. That is how we survive. That is how we thrive in even the harshest worlds." The elder's form shimmered, a wave of color flowing through their body. "And you have saved our planet today." Humans had indeed changed the course of the Zethurian world. Where once the Deathworlders had threatened to overwhelm everything, now balance returned. Ecosystems were intact, and the creatures moved with purpose along paths designed to protect the planet. But the humans were not finished. They knew that the Deathworlders' instincts could change, that new challenges would arise, and that the planet held secrets yet to be discovered. Their work was far from complete, but they had proven one undeniable truth: humanity could adapt to any environment, even worlds designed to destroy. In the following days, humans expanded their efforts. They discovered that the Deathworlders communicated subtly, through vibrations and chemical signals. By mimicking these signals with carefully calibrated devices, humans influenced groups of creatures at once, steering them like currents in a river. The Zethurians watched in silent admiration. These humans, small and fragile by conventional standards, had achieved what their own species could not. They survived where others would perish. They understood instincts and nature in ways the Zethurians had never imagined. One night, as Alara and her team rested, she reflected on their journey. Humans had faced death worlds before, but this one was unique. The Deathworlders were not violent. They were impossible to predict. Yet humans had turned observation and intelligence into power. They had not conquered, but they had guided. The Zethurians approached cautiously, their forms glowing softly in the moonlight. "You have done more than survive," one elder said. "You have preserved life. You have shown courage, patience, and ingenuity. You are extraordinary." Alara looked out over the valley where Deathworlders moved slowly, carefully, almost peacefully along the paths humans had created. "We just did what we had to do," she said. "We survive, we adapt, and we protect when we can." The Zethurians remained silent for a long moment. Then waves of color flowed through their bodies: gratitude, wonder, respect. They had once prayed that humans would stay away. Now they realized that humans were not a threat. They were a force for hope, capable of facing even the deadliest creatures with intelligence, courage, and care. And so the humans continued their work. Each day they observed, adapted, and guided. They endured storms, volcanic tremors, and the unpredictable instincts of the Deathworlders. And with every success, the Zethurians' admiration grew. By the end of this phase, humans had created a delicate balance. Deathworlders moved through the planet with minimal disruption. Ecosystems remained intact. And humans had demonstrated the most remarkable truth of all: that intelligence, empathy, and courage could achieve what strength and technology alone could not. The stage was set for the final part of the story. The Deathworlders were still on the planet, but humans had proven they could coexist. The Zethurians had discovered a new respect for humanity. And the universe, once fearful of humans, began to see them in a new light, as a species that could survive, adapt, and protect even the deadliest worlds. The humans had not only survived, They had guided life itself, showing that adaptability, intelligence, and empathy were more powerful than brute force. And in the vastness of the universe, every civilization that learned of this story would whisper the same thing. When humans arrive, even the deadliest worlds are not lost. The humans stood on a hilltop overlooking the valley, observing the massive Deathworlders moving along the safe paths they had created. Every step the creatures took was guided by the humans' ingenuity, and every plant, river, and forest remained intact. Captain Alara breathed deeply. For days, humans had worked tirelessly, adapting to the planet's unpredictable environment and guiding the Deathworlders with intelligence and care. But she knew that true success required more than temporary solutions. They needed a lasting balance, a system where the creatures could coexist with the Zethurians' world indefinitely. "Humans," said her first officer, "we've done well so far, but these creatures, they could still change their paths or their instincts might shift. We need something more permanent." Alara nodded. "Agreed. We'll build on what we've learned. We can create a system that communicates with the Deathworlders naturally without constant intervention." Using their advanced sensors, drones, and holographic technology, the humans designed a network of environmental cues. They carefully mapped the terrain, rivers, and forests. Small devices mimicked the subtle signals the Deathworlders naturally followed: vibrations, light patterns, and pheromone-like emissions. In essence, humans created a system that spoke the Deathworlders' language without words. The Zethurians watched silently, fascinated. They had never imagined that a species so small and seemingly fragile could create harmony with creatures so immense and unpredictable. Humans did not dominate or fight. They communicated and adapted. "This is incredible," said one Zethurian elder, shifting colors in admiration. "They are not gods, and yet they orchestrate life itself." The humans implemented their system carefully. Drones floated above rivers, projecting faint light that guided the Deathworlders along safe routes. Devices buried in the soil created subtle vibrations that mimicked the natural rhythm of the planet. And holographic plants, designed to look and smell like real ones, drew the creatures away from critical ecosystems. At first, the Deathworlders hesitated. Their massive bodies paused as they sensed the new cues. But soon, they began to move naturally along the paths the humans had created. It was as if they understood, instinctively, the safety these new routes provided. The Zethurians' admiration turned to awe. They realized that humans had done what no other species could. They had adapted to a death world and had brought balance without destroying a single life. Days passed, and the system proved its worth. The Deathworlders moved predictably yet freely, interacting with the environment in ways that preserved forests, rivers, and cities. Humans continued to monitor, but now their role had shifted from constant guidance to observation. The creatures had learned, in a sense, to follow the natural rhythms humans had enhanced. One evening, Captain Alara stood beside a Zethurian elder at the edge of a glowing river. The water sparkled like silver under the twin moons, and massive Deathworlders moved gracefully along the paths humans had created. "You have done more than survive," the elder said softly. "You have preserved life. You have shown courage, intelligence, and empathy." "You are extraordinary," Alara smiled. "We didn't do it alone. We adapted, we learned, and we respected life. That is what humans do. We survive, yes, but we also protect when we can." The Zethurians' colors shifted in waves of green, blue, and gold, a language of gratitude, awe, and respect. They had once prayed for humans to stay away, fearing their arrival would bring destruction. Now they saw humans as saviors, not invaders. But the humans were not finished. They explored the planet further, seeking to understand its ecosystems even more deeply. They discovered hidden networks of plants that communicated through light and vibration, vast underground rivers, and even creatures that could alter the flow of energy in the forests. Every discovery became a tool for harmony, every insight a step toward lasting balance. Captain Alara's team worked tirelessly but always with care. They avoided unnecessary interference, allowing the Deathworlders and the planet itself to guide their decisions. Humans were not rulers here, they were students, observers, and helpers. Yet their actions had already reshaped the world in profound ways. The Zethurians began to open dialogue with the humans. Though communication was limited at first, emotions and gestures conveyed meaning. The Zethurians shared knowledge of the planet's hidden wonders, teaching humans about ecosystems, energy flows, and the subtle interactions that maintained life. Humans, in turn, shared their understanding of observation, adaptation, and problem-solving. Together, they created a partnership unlike any other in the galaxy. Then came the final test. A massive group of Deathworlders moved toward a region of fragile glowing forests, a place humans had not yet fully secured. The creatures' instincts pulled them forward, unaware of the delicate ecosystem ahead. Alara's team acted quickly. They combined every tool they had developed: light projections, subtle vibrations, and holographic plant signals. The Deathworlders paused, sensing the cues. Slowly, deliberately, they changed course, moving along the safe paths humans had prepared. The Zethurians watched in silence, hearts pounding. No species had ever guided the Deathworlders so precisely without harm. Humans had turned a deadly threat into a harmonious coexistence. When the creatures finally moved safely past the forests, the valley seemed to exhale. Life remained intact. Rivers flowed freely. Trees shimmered in moonlight. And the Zethurians realized what they had witnessed. A species unlike any other had arrived, survived, and thrived, not by force, but by intelligence, courage, and respect for life. Captain Alara looked over the valley, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. Humans had done what no one else could. They had adapted to a death world, guided its deadliest creatures, and preserved life in ways even the Zethurians could not imagine. The Zethurians gathered around the humans, offering gestures of friendship and gratitude. For the first time in their history, they recognized humans as equals in intelligence and courage, capable of facing the most dangerous worlds with ingenuity and empathy. "You have proven something remarkable," said one elder, its form glowing with shifting colors. "You are not just survivors, you are protectors, you are humanity," Alara smiled. "We do not seek glory, we survive, yes, but we also learn and protect when we can. That is who we are." The humans prepared to leave the Zethurian world, knowing their work here had created lasting harmony. The Deathworlders continued to move along their safe paths, ecosystems thrived, and the Zethurians had discovered a species unlike any other in the galaxy. As the human fleet lifted from the planet, Captain Alara looked back at the valley below. The forest glowed, rivers sparkled, and massive Deathworlders moved peacefully through the landscape. Humans had arrived to explore, but they had left a legacy of balance, intelligence, and hope. From orbit, Alara transmitted a message back to human space: Zethurian world secured, life preserved, intelligence, courage, and adaptation triumph where force cannot. Humanity proves its strength, not through domination but through understanding and care. The Zethurians, watching from the planet below, whispered among themselves. They had once feared humans. Now they offered friendship, guidance, and trust, knowing that a species capable of surviving death worlds without destruction was a force for hope in the galaxy. And far across the stars, other civilizations began to hear the story. Word spread that humans could adapt to any environment, survive the deadliest creatures, and protect life without domination. A quiet legend grew: when humans arrive, even the deadliest worlds are not lost. The story of humans on the Zethurian world became a testament to the HFY spirit. Courage, intelligence, adaptation, and respect for life could overcome even the harshest challenges. The Deathworlders had been guided, the planet preserved, and humans had proven that survival was more than endurance. It was wisdom, empathy, and ingenuity. As the fleet sailed through the stars, Captain Alara felt a deep sense of pride. Humanity had faced a death world and emerged not only alive but victorious in a way that no one had expected. And the universe, vast and full of danger, would never underestimate humans again. The Zethurian forest shimmered beneath twin moons. Massive Deathworlders moved peacefully along their paths, and the bond between species, human and alien, was stronger than ever. The galaxy had witnessed the triumph of understanding over fear, intelligence over brute strength, and courage over despair. Humanity had arrived. Humanity had adapted. Humanity had triumphed.